Hello all. From this video onwards, we will learn few basic Git commands which a software developer must be aware of. So let's say a person is working on some project which uses Git as a version control system. At least we should be aware of few basic commands, right? Like you have to pull code into your repository, make changes to the code files, and then you have to push it, commit and push it. So for that, at least you should have some basic knowledge of Git commands. So we will concentrate on learning those commands from this video onwards. Now coming to the first command is git init or git clone. So even before pushing or pulling the code, like you make changes to the code files and you push it. So even before that, first you should have a repository set up on your machine, right? Then only you will be able to commit, push and do everything else. So to make like to set up a repository on your local machine, there are two ways. One is, if you already have a repository hosted somewhere else on the internet, you clone it. So what I mean is, let's say I have a this is my internet server, like this is my server where my repository A is hosted, and there are developers like D1 is one developer and D2 is another developer. Now in like D1 D2 are already working on project here. Now a D3 has joined the company and he's a new developer. Okay, so what he does is he wants to pull this code, pull a code onto his mission. What he does is, since the code is already existing on internet or on some other server, so what he needs is he just needs to pull the code. So this is called git clone. He has to, clone the code. Whatever is present on the internet server, he has to pull it. So which is nothing but he has to clone it. So like somewhere repository is already present, you are just need to clone it. That is one way of initializing a Git repository on D3 mission. Another way is, so you don't have your repository set up anywhere else. You're starting a brand new project. When you're starting a brand new project, first you should develop something on your local and then only you have to push it. So that is used like for that git init command is used. So basically git init is like, so if you're starting a brand new project and you don't have any repository set up, so like let's say I'm starting a new project, what I'll do, I'll create a folder on my machine and then I'll add my code files to that. Okay, now if I create a folder on my Windows machine and then add code files, will my folder acts as a git repository? No, right? It works as a normal folder. You can't execute any git commands in that because it doesn't act as a git repository. So for that, what you have to do is you have to do this git init command. So let me explain that. So I have created a new folder. Okay, git version control is my folder, and I did not pull it from anywhere else. I have created a new directory, or let me create another new directory called git version control. Okay, now this is a new, like I'm starting a new project. It's a brand new project. Now I'll go to the version control and I don't have anything else. Like if I run git status, it doesn't show anything here because you have not cloned anything. Now, since this is a new folder and to make this folder work as a git repository, I have to do is git init. So if you see here, it has initialized empty git repository. So whenever your folder is acting as a git repository, one main thing is you will have this dot git. Okay, dot git one. So dot git will contain all the metadata or the information related to the files present. So now you have initialized, or what you have done is you have made this version control folder as a git repository by running this git init command. Now if I run git status, see, before you were seeing something else, now the result is different because now you have made this version control as a repository, not as a normal folder. So this is one way of making or of creating a repository. Now what I'll do is, like let's say I create a new file. Okay, now I'm adding some content to that. Hi.text. So now if you see, you have one file ls. Okay, I'll run git status. So what it is showing? So it is showing untracked files. So if you have not done this git init and ran git status, it won't show like this, because it did not treat this folder as a git repository. So you have to run git init command to convert this folder as a git repository. Okay, so that is one way of doing it. Another way is, so now I'm starting a new project, that's why I have made git init. But if you already have a repository residing somewhere else, now if you see, in this particular place you already have a repository. Now what I have to do is I just need to clone it. I just need to pull the repository to my local. I have to make changes. There is code, repository is already present, I just have to pull it. So for that you have to use git clone command. So using the git clone command, you can pull the repository that is residing on the internet onto your local machine. So I can do that. So if I ran git clone, you can see here, right? It is pulling the git repos, like live git repository onto my local machine. Okay, so you would have understand the differences between init and clone, right? Init is like, you to convert your local folder to a git repository, you need git init, or to already like just pull the repository that is already existing on somewhere internet, you have to use the clone. Okay, now what you have observed here is git clone. You are cloning it. So by default your code will reside in this live git2 folder. So let me run the ls. If you see, in the live git2 folder your code changes are pulled. Now I don't want to pull my changes to live git folder, live git2 folder. I want to pull my changes to a new folder called version. Okay, so what you can do in that case is, I don't want this default name live2, I want my changes to be cloned to my version folder. So in that case you can specify the folder name. If you see now, in it is cloning to git version. Here if you see, it had cloned to live2, now it had cloned to version. So git clone works this way. And one more thing is, if you have seen, this is a HTTPS protocol. Okay, this is the username password. So there are other protocols also, like you can specify the username in the URL itself. So that is like SSH based protocol that we will discuss later. Yeah. Thank you.